firm whether she stays or goes. Machiavelli's greatest lesson wasn't about control. It was about command of the self. And the man who masters that doesn't lose. He chooses. So rebuild. Not for her. For you. Because the right woman won't love you for how much you give up, but for how much you stand in. And when you do, she won't just stay. She'll never want to leave. Why she left, a lesson in power and presence. She didn't leave because you weren't enough. She left because she understood you, and in her world, certainty isn't safety, it's stagnation. She wasn't chasing perfection. She was drawn to mystery. And you, unfortunately, became predictable. The world doesn't reward loyalty as much as it respects restraint. The greatest restraint you'll ever master is over yourself. You were taught to be kind, to give endlessly, to love without conditions. They told you goodness would win her over. But they were wrong. Machiavelli wouldn't mock you out of cruelty, he'd laugh because he knew what most men never learn: power isn't given. It's taken, by winning the war within. She didn't walk away because you lacked value. She withdrew because you were always there, too available, too transparent, too easy to grasp. You weren't an enigma anymore. You were a solved equation. And what's fully understood can be managed, not desired. That spark in her eyes. The one that once made you feel invincible. It was instinct, the magnetic pull of polarity. But you confused curiosity for connection, her tests for tenderness. Machiavelli wrote, "A ruler doesn't need to be good, only to survive." Survival doesn't come from seeking approval, it comes from inner stillness. From being anchored, not cold, but composed. In the silent dance between men and women, power doesn't belong to the loudest voice or the strongest hand. It belongs to the man who remains unreadable, who doesn't beg or justify. Because worth isn't spoken. It's embodied. Women aren't drawn to chaos. They're drawn to steadiness, to the man who feels deep, who speaks when silence holds meaning, who reveals just enough, never everything. Most men rush to be seen. They overshare, over-compliment, over-confess. Every gesture whispers the same plea, "Please like me." And nothing erodes attraction faster than neediness. You thought you were being romantic. To her, it felt like surrender. She didn't leave out of malice. Her instincts it's me, not himself. That's not security, it's a warning. No one told you this: attraction thrives on tension, not access. It lives in what you guard, not what you give freely. Your presence should feel rare. Your attention, earned. What's offered without cost is rarely treasured. You don't have to be distant, but you must be deliberate. You don't need to disappear, but you must be intentional. Because when she looks at you, she's not admiring your face, she's testing your foundation. Is he grounded? Is he led by impulse or anchored in purpose? If your world revolves around her, she'll step back, not out of cruelty, but because something primal recognizes: a man who bends too easily will break even faster. Machiavelli didn't write about love. He wrote about leadership. And leadership begins with self-mastery. If you don't govern your emotions, someone else will. The moment she realizes she can control you, she loses the desire to stay, not because she's broken, but because you handed her power she was never meant to hold. Part 1, when she tests you, be the wall, not the mirror. She won't announce the test. She doesn't need to, her silence will. Her absence. The shift in her tone, the pause in her replies. Most men misread it. They chase. Explain. Panic. Not from weakness, but because they've built their stability around her comfort instead of their own core. But you must be different. When she pulls back, she's not asking, "Do you care?" She's asking, "Can you hold your frame?" She's trying to find you. She wants to know what happens when the warmth fades. Do you crumble, or do you stand firm? You thought she was losing interest. You thought you had to win her back. But it wasn't about attraction. It was calibration. Every woman, consciously or not, seeks something deeper than charm, leadership. Not dominance. Not performance. But the quiet, unshakable strength of a man who leads himself. He doesn't chase clarity. He doesn't fold under pressure. He doesn't abandon his values to avoid conflict. He breathes. He holds. He remains. She doesn't want another mirror, men who reflect her moods, echo her words, adapt until they vanish. That's not strength. That's erosion. And she feels it, not as love, but as weight. Because when you become the mirror, you hand her the reins. And she doesn't want to lead. She wants to lean, but only on something that won't collapse. So when she's quiet, don't rush to fill the silence. When she steps back, don't chase. Hold your ground. Not as a game, but as proof. You don't need her validation. You generate your own. Her distance isn't rejection. It's a scan. She's asking, will you lose yourself to keep me? And if the answer is yes, you become replaceable. Because a man who bends under pressure can't be trusted when storms come. Machiavelli would call this what it is, a loyalty test, not hers to you, but yours to yourself. Most fail, not from weakness, but because no one taught them that presence isn't declared. It's demonstrated.
Hello?
She doesn't need your poetry. She needs your poise. You don't prove yourself with words. You prove yourself by standing firm under tension. Because if she can shake you, she'll never fully trust you. And trust, not love, is what roots desire. When the room grows cold, don't flinch. Don't plead. Don't perform. Be still. Be calm. Be anchored. In your silence, she won't see indifference. She'll see power, not the kind that demands attention, but the kind that holds space. Because in a world of noise, a man who remains unshaken is the only one who feels safe. Part 2, approval is we're addicted. You didn't chase her out of love. You chased her because you were starving. You needed her gaze to confirm your worth. That wasn't love. That was dependence. Machiavelli wouldn't condemn you. He'd warn you, any man who relies on another's approval has already surrendered his power. This didn't start with her. It started when they told you that being agreeable meant being good. That being liked meant being safe. That being chosen was the ultimate prize. So you adapted. Smiled when it hurt. Agreed when you didn't. Gave without boundaries. Silenced your truth just to keep her comfortable. You weren't loving. You were negotiating, trading authenticity for acceptance. Because approval is emotional heroin. 1 hit, you feel real. 2 hits, you forget your edges. 3 hits, you burn yourself out, desperate for her light. Not because she asked you to, but because you believed her attention made you whole. But here's the truth, approval is leverage. Once she senses you need it, she no longer needs to respect you. She can manage you. Not out of malice, but instinct. People manage what they don't admire. And when you offer your sense of self for approval, you stop being a presence and become a product. You've seen it before, the man waiting for the text. Editing his words to match hers. Saying whatever you want before she speaks. That man doesn't inspire desire. He drains it. Because she doesn't want a satellite orbiting her. She wants a sun, burning from its own core. Machiavelli didn't write about romance. He wrote about power. And true power comes from detachment, from needing no one's validation but your own. If your worth rises and falls with her glance, you are no longer a man, you are a mirror. And mirrors don't inspire love. They reflect it, until nothing remains behind the glass. No woman can complete you. She can only amplify what you already are. Come to her full, and she magnifies. Come to her empty, and she vanishes, not out of cruelty, but because you gave her a role she was never meant to play. Stop chasing the high. Reclaim your throne. You weren't born to audition. You were born to rule, not loudly, but unshakably. Not to perform for love, but to embody it. Part 3, she wanted to feel you, not fix you. She didn't leave because you were broken. She left because she felt you trying to make her the cure. What you called vulnerability, she felt as weight. What you thought was intimacy, she experienced as obligation. You were confessing, unraveling, bleeding in her hands, hoping your openness would bind her to you. She wanted a partner. You mistook self-disclosure for connection. But connection isn't built on exposure, it's built on embodiment. On owning your shadows without needing her to hold them. You believed if you showed her everything, your pain, your fears, your unhealed wounds, she'd see the real you and stay. But she didn't want to be your therapist. She wanted leadership. She needed to feel your strength despite the storm, not drown in it with you. Because here's what no one tells you. Emotional expression without emotional control isn't intimacy, it's dumping. It doesn't deepen the bond. It drains it. It's not that she wanted you cold or closed. She just needed to know you had yourself, that your emotions were navigated, not outsourced. That you didn't require her to stabilize your chaos in order to stay centered. A man who shares from solid ground invites closeness. A man who shares from collapse creates pressure. And pressure kills desire. Machiavelli wouldn't tell you to suppress your emotions. He'd tell you to command them. Because in matters of power, the uncontrolled become the controlled. And in love, the emotionally dependent become emotionally dismissed, not because they're unlovable, but because they make love feel unsafe. The masculine isn't emotionless, it's the container for emotion. It's not about hiding. It's about holding. You wanted her to see your wounds and stay. But she wanted to feel your depth without falling into it. And when she realized you were handing her your wholeness, asking her to complete what you hadn't claimed yourself, her instinct. This isn't mine to carry. Women don't fear emotion. They fear instability. They fear the man who can cry, but can't stop. Who can feel, but can't lead. Who opens up, but never rebuilds. You thought transparency was strength. But transparency without sovereignty is just glass, easily shattered. She didn't need you to be perfect. She needed you to be anchored. To prove that when your world shook, she wouldn't have to hold you up. Because a man who carries his own weight makes space for her to soften. But a man who collapses into her softness forces her to harden. You wondered why she grew colder. Sharper. More distant. It wasn't her nature. It was your surrender. Not to her, but to your own unmet wounds. Part 4, lead with energy, not explanation. You thought leadership meant words, promises, plans, reassurances. But she didn't listen to what you said. She listened to what you radiated. Masculine leadership isn't verbal. It's vibrational. It's not about telling her you're solid. It's about being solid, so consistently that she feels it before you speak. You explained too much. You chased her confusion with logic. You tried to fix her doubts with debate. But desire doesn't live in reason. It lives in energy. In tension. In the unspoken space between certainty and mystery. And here's the truth. The more you explain, the more you expose your fear. Not of her, but of losing her. She didn't need paragraphs. She needed presence. She didn't want your arguments. She wanted your aura. Because a man who needs to explain his worth has already doubted it. Real power doesn't announce itself, it arrives. It doesn't plead, it chooses. It doesn't chase agreement, it embodies it. She tests you not out of cruelty, but because she's seeking something deeper than words, resonance. She wants to know. Can I relax into his presence? Can I trust his calm isn't an act? Can I surrender to a man who won't break under pressure? Because if you crumble every time the room grows cold, she won't feel held, she'll feel alone. Machiavelli understood what most men never do. Power doesn't respond to noise. It responds to posture. You tried to win her with transparency. But transparency without sovereignty is just neediness in disguise. She wants to see your soul, but through the lens of your own mastery. Because she'll never feel safe with a man who... She craves your vulnerability. But only after she's felt your spine. Can you show her your pain after you've processed it? Can you speak your truth without needing her reaction? Can you be open, but still in command? That's true leadership. You don't lead her by managing her emotions. You lead her by mastering your own. She isn't watching your mouth. She's watching your nervous system. How steady your breath is. How still your hands remain when her words sting. How rooted you stand when every instinct screams to react. Because that is where she decides. Can I trust this man when life gets heavy? And if the answer is no, she'll pull away, not because you're not kind, not good, not honest, but because you haven't yet become unshakable. Machiavelli would say, a man who cannot lead himself will always be led by those who can. And in love, leadership isn't a title, it's an energy. A frequency. A quiet certainty that says, I don't need your approval to stay whole. I don't need your validation to remain rooted. I don't need your response to hold my ground. That's not detachment.